I spent months in a wheelchair rebuilding my body after cancer, and I only got stronger when I felt like I was falling apart. Most women I coach think resilience means bouncing back by morning, but the signs you're actually building it feel like failure. There are 5 of them, and each one has a daily routine that makes it bearable. I've coached women through every one of these signs, and the difference isn't willpower. You know that feeling when you finally say no to something, and instead of relief, you get guilt. A client wants a weekend reply, and you tell them you don't work Saturdays. Your family expects you at every event, and you start choosing only the ones that matter. The boundary itself is hard, but what happens after is harder. People push back, friends say you've changed, and family says you're not as available. And because you're a woman running a business, you were probably taught that being accommodating is part of your value. Saying no feels like taking away something people count on. But research tracked entrepreneurs and their daily recovery in 2025. And 2 factors that protect your mental health are control and detachment. Control means you decide when work starts and stops. Detachment means you actually leave work behind at the end of the day. These aren't luxuries. They're the exact behaviours that determine whether you burn out or keep going. Perfectionism and people-pleasing create a kind of chronic stress that looks like high performance, but you're not saying yes because you have to. You're saying yes because it feels safer than the guilt of saying no. So here's the routine. Every evening at 8 p.m, your phone alarm rings. You grab one sticky note and you write 3 things. Tomorrow's top 3 tasks and 1 non-negotiable boundary. That's it. Maybe it's no email after 6 p.m. or 2 uninterrupted hours on Tuesday morning, or simply no to a project that doesn't pay enough to justify the stress. You place that note on your laptop, and when you shut it, you're done. The reason this works is because pre-deciding your boundaries removes the willpower drain. When a client pushes for a weekend call, your emotions are already high, and saying no feels impossible. But when you decided at 8 p.m. last night that Saturdays are yours, it's not a negotiation anymore. It's a fact. I worked with a woman who ran a coaching business while raising 2 kids and caring for her mother. She said yes to every request because each felt reasonable. A quick call here, a favour there, and a client who rescheduled for the 3rd time. One day she told me she hadn't eaten lunch sitting down in 3 weeks. She thought the problem was time management, but the real problem was every boundary she should have had standing open, with her holding them all open through her own exhaustion. When she finally started saying no, her mother-in-law told her she seemed different. Her sister said she seemed distant. Her best client pushed back when she stopped offering weekend sessions. She called me after each one, convinced she was ruining everything. But 6 months later, her revenue was higher. She had more energy for her kids. And those who stayed in her life were the ones who actually respected her time. That's what real boundaries do, because they don't just protect your energy, and they reveal what's real in your life. So tonight, when your alarm goes off at 8 p.m, I want you to write that one boundary. The discomfort you feel when you imagine setting it tells you exactly how much it matters. The next sign shows up in your daily routine, and it's one you probably beat yourself up over. You start wanting to quit things you used to tolerate. Looking at your calendar fills you with dread instead of excitement. Hiring help doesn't feel like growth anymore. It feels like surrender. You used to power through a 60-hour week, and now you can't imagine how you ever did it. And the voice in your head says, you're losing your edge. But you're not losing your edge. Your system is finally allowing itself to have needs. For years, you suppressed the need to rest because rest felt dangerous. Rest meant falling behind or letting someone else get ahead. And it meant you weren't committed enough. So you built a life where you never had to ask for help because asking felt like weakness. But when we apply resilience blindly and push through no matter what, it actually harms our health and breaks the systems we're trying to maintain. A study on entrepreneurs and daily recovery found detachment, relaxation, mastery, and control predict whether you'll burn out or thrive. Notice what isn't on that list, because pushing through isn't there, and working harder isn't either. The need to rest more, to delegate, to step back, These aren't signs you're giving up. They're signs your nervous system is finally regulating instead of overriding. So here's the routine. Before any major transition in your day, before work, before picking up the kids, before bed, you take 5 minutes of stillness. You sit down, you set a timer, and you practice 4-6-8 breathing. Breathe in for 4 seconds, hold for 6, and out for 8. Do this for 5 minutes. This pattern calms your body quickly, and it's been shown to lower heart rate and cortisol. Rest stops feeling like surrender when it has a container and a clear endpoint. Instead of collapsing for 3 hours and feeling guilty, you give yourself 5 minutes with a timer. The timer is the boundary that makes rest feel safe. When the timer rings, you get up and you move on. The reframe is simple. Instead of, I need to rest because I'm broken, you say I'm resting because my system is recalibrating. Let me give you an example. I worked with a founder who finally hired an assistant after 5 years of doing everything herself. She didn't hire the assistant because she'd gotten extra money or extra time. The change came one morning when she sat down at her desk and realized she genuinely couldn't answer another email. She thought she was failing and called me crying, saying she used to be able to handle all of this. But what she was experiencing wasn't failure. It was her system finally saying out loud what had been whispering for years. That moment of not being able to continue was the beginning of her actually recovering. Please feel free to start with just one transition today. 5 minutes before you switch from work to family, sit down and breathe. It's not a luxury. It's the behavior that determines whether you burn out or thrive. But here's the sign that scares women the most, because it's the one that makes you think therapy isn't working or you're going backwards. You start doing the self-care work. You set a boundary, you take a weekend off, and you finally say no to something. And instead of feeling better, you feel worse. You crash on Sunday, you cry in the shower, and you wake up tired even after 8 hours of sleep. And your emotions feel bigger, not smaller, all at the same time. The first thought is always that you must have messed this up, but you're not doing it wrong. What you're experiencing is your nervous system finally feeling safe enough to let go. Think about it this way. For years, maybe decades, you've been running on adrenaline. You've been the one holding everything together, the business, the family, the clients, the household. Your nervous system learned that rest wasn't safe because another fire always needed putting out. So when you finally create space, your body does what it's been waiting to do. It releases the backlog. The fatigue you feel on that first real weekend off isn't new fatigue. It's old fatigue that finally has permission to surface. The emotions that feel bigger aren't random. They're the ones you didn't have time to feel when you were busy surviving. Research points to something important here. The most common outcome after serious stress is stable recovery, but the path is never a straight line. You will feel worse before you feel better, and that feeling worse is proof the process is working, not proof that it's failing. It's like a fever breaking, and the worst moment is right before the temperature drops. Your body isn't failing in that moment, it's fighting. So here's the routine. It's a 10-minute morning check-in using 3 questions. What am I actually feeling? What was I too busy to feel last week? And what does my body need today? You keep a small notebook by your bed, and each morning you write the answers without action. Just notice what comes up. The reframe is this. Instead of I must have messed this up, you say, my body is finally feeling safe enough to let go. I see this with entrepreneurs all the time. A woman finally takes her first real vacation in 2 years, and she spends the first 3 days sleeping or crying or both. She thinks she's broken. She thinks the rest didn't work. But what's actually happening is her system is recalibrating. You can't run an engine at redline for years and expect it to idle smoothly the first day you ease off the gas. The crash protocol gives you a way to witness the crash without judging it. When you name what you're feeling, you turn the chaos into information, and information is something you can work with. So tomorrow morning, I want you to try it. 10 minutes, 3 questions, and no action except noticing. Number 4 challenges the biggest lie we all believe about bouncing back fast. You used to bounce back fast. A client fired you and you'd already lined up a new prospect by dinner. Someone criticized your work and you brushed it off by lunch. A launch failed and you were already planning the next one before the numbers finished loading. That looked like resilience. Everyone told you they called it resilience. But what it really turned out to be most of the time was bypassing. Psychologists have been tracking this, and what they're finding is turning the old model upside down. Research from late 2025 shows professionals who fail slowly, who sit with the setback instead of rushing past it, build deeper resilience than those who bounce back immediately. It's not about wallowing, it's about integration. When you bury a loss and move on fast, the lesson gets buried too. When you let yourself feel the disappointment, your brain processes what happened and you come back with different priorities. But most entrepreneurs miss something. Rebuilding fast feels productive, but it usually means you're rebuilding the same system that just broke you. This is especially hard because your business and identity are fused. When you lose a client, it doesn't just feel like a business setback. It feels like a referendum on whether you're good enough. So bouncing back fast isn't a strategy. It's a defense against feeling inadequate. But when you finally allow yourself to take longer, your identity separates from the outcome. You're learning that a failed launch doesn't make you a failure. It makes you an entrepreneur who experienced a failed launch. And that distinction is everything. So here's the routine. After any significant setback, lost client, failed launch, harsh feedback, you impose a 24-hour freeze on all major decisions related to it. You write down what happened, what you feel, and one question you need answered. Then you put it in a drawer for 24 hours without action. The patch job looks strong from the outside, but it's brittle. Full recovery takes longer, but it holds. The women I see recover fully don't come back the same. They come back clearer, knowing what they'll tolerate and what they won't. So if your setbacks are sitting with you longer than they used to, that doesn't mean you're weaker. It means you're no longer willing to pretend you're fine when you're not. The last sign attacks the biggest myth about emotional strength. We've been taught that emotional control means feeling less. The strong woman keeps it together. The professional entrepreneur doesn't take it personally. And the resilient founder stays steady no matter what hits her. And for years, you probably prided yourself on exactly that. You could walk into a crisis and feel nothing, get bad news and keep working, or cry in the car for 5 minutes before getting back to business. But here's what's really happening when you feel less. Your nervous system has armored itself because numbing isn't strength, it's a survival response. And survival responses are expensive to maintain. They cost you sleep, digestion, connection, creativity, and eventually your health. When you start healing, the armor cracks, and when it does, you feel more. You cry at commercials, and you get angry when a client speaks to you rudely, and you feel joy so sharply it almost scares you. The first reaction is always fear, and you think you're losing control and becoming fragile, but you are not becoming fragile. You are becoming alive, and that aliveness is exactly what you've been missing. And there's a pattern I see in the women I work with. They spend years staying professional and not taking things personally. And then one day they realize they have actual feelings about their business. They realize they care so much it hurts, that the fear they've pushed down is real, and that their dream matters more than they admitted. And they panic because feeling this much seems like it would break them. But feeling doesn't break you. Numbing breaks you slowly in ways you can't see. And feeling breaks the illusion that you're fine, which is what kept you stuck. When you finally let yourself feel the terror about cash flow, the grief about a lost partnership, or the anger about working so hard for so little return, those feelings contain information your business needs. The terror tells you where the risk is, the grief tells you what mattered, and the anger tells you where your boundaries should have been. So here's the routine. It's a 3-minute abbreviated body scan. You set a timer, you close your eyes, and you start at your feet. You slowly move your attention upward, legs, hips, torso, shoulders, face. At each region you ask what's here, and you consciously soften with the exhale. Stop when the timer rings. This gives feeling a container so it doesn't flood you. The reframe is this: instead of I'm becoming fragile, you say I'm becoming accurate. My feelings are finally telling me the truth, and I'm finally listening. I worked with a founder who hadn't cried in 3 years, not because nothing sad happened, but because she trained herself out of it. She'd been raising 2 kids, caring for a sick parent, running a struggling business, and managing a marriage on autopilot. And she told me with pride she could handle it all without falling apart. But when she finally let herself feel, rage came first. Rage that she carried everything alone and that nobody had asked if she was okay. After the rage came sadness, that she had spent 3 years proving she'd been fine when she wasn't. That rage and sadness turned her honest. And 6 months later, she restructured her business, set real boundaries with her family, and told her husband what she needed. She didn't become more emotional, she became more accurate. So tonight before bed, try the 3-minute scan. Ask what's here and soften. All 5 signs connect right here. Feeling worse before you feel better, wanting to rest, needing harder boundaries, taking longer to recover, and feeling more deeply aren't separate problems. They're the same process. Pick the sign that hit you hardest and start with its routine tomorrow. Subscribe, because next week we're talking about what happens when all 5 routines are in place.